My name is Hannah Cole, and I'm 30 years old. On paper, my life looks like the kind that makes bankers relax and wedding planners swoon. I'm an IT project manager. My days are Gantt charts and bug reports, and people saying, it'll be fine, while I quietly build 3 backup plans in case it isn't. My brain is wired for logic, timelines, and spotting dependencies. If something breaks, there's always a root cause and a documented response. My condo is the same way. 2 bedrooms, clean lines, mortgage in my name. I picked every piece of furniture with a coupon in one hand and a spreadsheet in the other. My chipped mugs sit next to a color-coded budget binder on the kitchen counter, like a still life of responsible adulthood. 4 years ago, I met Evan Miller. Evan is 28, works in marketing, and lives in a world made of narratives. Where I see risk, he sees potential. Where I see a red flag, he sees a fun challenge. He's charming, creative, and the type of guy who can talk a barista into upgrading his drink for free just by complimenting her latte art. 6 months ago, he moved into my condo. 3 months ago, we put down a non-refundable $20,000 deposit, my parents' gift, on a venue with chandeliers and enough white flowers to trigger anyone's allergies. We were 6 months out from the wedding when everything broke. Evan has an ex-girlfriend named Beth Carter, 28, loud, pretty, always at the center of some drama. They dated in college, broke up, and stayed friends. Very close friends. The kind who text at midnight and send each other memes about their song, like it doesn't mean what it obviously means. He swore it was ancient history. I smiled and pretended I believed him. I was polite to Beth for his sake, but something about her set off the same warning in my head that I get when someone says, "Don't worry about the documentation, we'll fill it in later." They call it intuition. I call it pattern recognition. Beth is the kind of woman who treats attention like oxygen. She and Evan together are a lot. Inside jokes, stories from back when we were wild, that glow people get when they know the stories make you uncomfortable and they're telling them anyway. I told myself I was being old-fashioned, territorial. I told myself to grow up. Adults can be friends with their exes. Last Tuesday, I was on the couch, halfway through a dense technical document for work, when my phone buzzed. A text from Beth. "Hey, you working hard?" I stared at it. Beth and I aren't "hey you" friends. We are see each other at group events and exchange polite small talk friends. The kind who only text logistics, running 10 minutes late, what's Evan's shirt size again, that sort of thing. I typed slowly. "Hey Beth. Yeah, just wrapping up a project. What's up?" The dots appeared immediately. "Just so bored. Evan's at his yoga class. I was just thinking you're always so nice." I frowned. That wasn't her tone with me. With Evan, sure. With me, never. Thanks. You okay?" "I am now. You know, Evan is a very lucky man. Sometimes I wonder, does he really appreciate what he has?" My stomach dropped. This wasn't a bored text. This was a what the hell text. The first spike of emotion hit. Anger, confusion, humiliation. But it died quickly under something stronger. Cold, sharp caution. This felt like a trap. The question wasn't, is she hitting on me? It was, why would she be hitting on me? And if this is a test, what are they trying to prove? If I ignored it, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering if I imagined it. If I told Evan without evidence, Beth could deny everything and turn it into Hannah's insecure. I needed data, confirmation. In my world, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. I took a breath and forced my thumbs to move. "I'm not sure what you mean, Beth. I think Evan and I have a great relationship." "Oh, I'm sure. But just hypothetically. If you ever felt like you weren't satisfied, I just think you're really hot, and I'm a lot more fun than he is. Just saying. Our little secret." A picture followed. Her in silky pajamas, duck face, one strap accidentally slipping down. Cheap, obvious, infuriating, but also perfect. I had her. I stared at the screen, every muscle in my body tight. This was my boyfriend's ex, his best friend, inviting me to cheat on him, or to fail some twisted test. Either way, I wasn't playing. "Beth, I'm going to be very clear. I love Evan. I'm going to marry him. This conversation is wildly inappropriate and it needs to stop. I'm going to pretend this didn't happen for Evan's sake, but don't ever text me like this again." I hit send and sat back, heart pounding. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I thought that was the end of it. An ugly, stupid thing I'd have to tell Evan about later and hope it didn't blow our lives up. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. "Okay, you're right. Sorry. God, I feel so stupid. Look, can I be honest? Here it comes, I thought. The backpedal. You probably should be. Evan made me do it. I stopped breathing. He's been freaking out saying you're too perfect and that he's worried you're too good at hiding things. He wanted me to test you. I told him it was a crazy idea. Please, Hannah, don't tell him I told you. He'll kill me. He's just really insecure. Be nice to him. The anger that rose in me then wasn't hot. It was cold, heavy, like ice forming around my ribs. Beth was disgusting, sure, but this wasn't her idea. This was Evan, the man who kissed my forehead every morning, the man who put his name on the RSVP list as groom, the man who moved into my home and let my parents spend $20,000 on a venue because we were a sure thing. He had handed my number to his ex-girlfriend and said, "Hey, can you try to seduce my fiancé? I just need to be sure." He hadn't talked to me. He hadn't said, "I'm struggling with trust. Can we go to therapy?" He'd run an experiment on me, on us. I scrolled back through months of small comments, jealous jokes that weren't jokes. Do you really have to be that friendly with the barista? Why are you liking that guy's gym selfie? You always have these late nights at work. Nothing to confess? I'd chalked it up to pre-wedding jitters. Now it looked different. Not nervous, paranoid, calculating. The front door clicked open an hour later. Lavender and sweat drifted in with Evan as he dropped his gym bag by the door. "Hey, babe," he said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. "How was work?" "It was fine," I said, keeping my voice level. "We need to talk about something, though." He paused. His smile faltered just a bit. "Okay, what's up?" I picked up my phone off the coffee table. "Beth texted me tonight," I said. "I got some really weird messages from her." I opened the thread and handed him the phone, stopping before the part where she confessed his involvement. I watched his face as he read Beth's flirty lines, the photo, my refusal. His jaw dropped. "What the?" he whispered. "Hannah, I can't believe her. Is she drunk? I'm going to call her right now. That snake." He was good. I'll give him that. "Don't bother calling her," I said. He froze, thumb hovering over his phone. "What? Of course I'm calling her. She needs to be held accountable for this." A tiny smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Wow, though," he added, looking up at me. "You really shut her down. You passed with flying colors." "Passed." I felt something inside me go very, very still. "Passed," I repeated. He laughed, trying to make it sound light. "A little loyalty test, okay? Don't look at me like that. I knew you'd pass. I had to be sure. Beth's always saying people can't be trusted. I wanted to prove her wrong, and you did." He stepped closer, smiling. "I'm so proud of you." He leaned in to kiss me. I held up a hand between us. "A test," I said quietly. "You asked your ex-girlfriend to hit on me to see if I'd cheat on you." "Hannah, come on," he said, the laugh edging into irritation. "It was just a silly thing. Everyone does it. Don't be so dramatic." "Well," I said, lifting my phone and scrolling down, "it's funny you say that." His smile disappeared. "Because I don't think Beth was the one who failed the test." "What are you talking about?" he asked, voice sharpening. I turned the screen toward him again and showed him the rest of the conversation. We watched the color drain from his face together as he read Beth's confession. "Evan made me do it. He wanted me to test you." For a second, the room was silent. Then his whole expression shifted. Panic, then anger, then something uglier. "Hannah," he snapped. "You backed her into a corner. You manipulated her into saying that. You were supposed to just say no and delete it. Why are you trying to ruin everything?" There it was. Not regret, not apology. Attack. I stood up from the couch. My hands weren't shaking anymore. "No," I said. "You ruined it. You had your ex-girlfriend try to seduce me instead of talking to me like an adult. You turned our relationship into a science experiment." "Oh, grow up," he shot back. "It's not a big deal. Everyone does this. How else am I supposed to know you're not lying? You're the one who started interrogating Beth behind my back. You're the monster here." The love I'd felt for him didn't explode or shatter. It just switched off, like a breaker flipped in my chest. "We're done," I said. His mouth fell open. "We are not breaking up over this. I am not letting you break up with me over this." "I can't marry someone who thinks this is okay," I said calmly. "I can't even date someone who thinks this is okay. The wedding is off. Pack your things. I'll stay at a friend's tonight." He was still yelling when I grabbed my keys. The door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded, in my ears, like the end of a chapter. The next morning, I woke up on my friend's lumpy guest bed with that split second of peace before memory slammed back in. The text, the smirk, "You passed." I stared at the ceiling, listening to the hum of her ancient AC unit, and felt the weight of the wedding grind down on my chest. Venue deposit $20,000. My parents' money, non-refundable. I felt sick. By 9 a.m., I'd rehearsed a dozen ways to tell them. None of them sounded right. None of them made me feel like anything other than a failure. In the end, I just called. My mom answered on the first ring. Sweetie, everything okay? No, I said, and my voice cracked on the word. Can you and Dad get on speaker? By the time I finished explaining, reading them the texts, telling them about the loyalty test, the screaming, the breakup, the silence on the other end was so thick I thought the call had dropped. Then my dad exhaled. Well, he said, voice tight but steady, consider it the cheapest divorce you'll never have to get. Dad, I whispered, I'm so sorry. The deposit... Hannah, his tone sharpened. Stop. Money is money. We'll survive. We are not going to let you marry a man who treats you like a lab rat so a check doesn't go to waste. My mom sniffled. We're heartbroken for you, she said. But we're proud of you. You didn't fail a test. You passed the real one. You walked away. I cried then. Not because of Evan. Because of them. Because they'd trusted him, opened their wallets and their hearts, and he'd turned out to be this. I hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling simultaneously lighter and more exhausted than I had in years. I assumed Evan would tell his parents. He did, just not the truth. By late afternoon, my phone lit up again. Susan Miller. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I remembered. If I didn't control the narrative, he would. I answered. Hannah, Susan's voice was already thick with tears. What is going on? Evan is here. He's an absolute wreck. He said you... She broke off, sobbing. I closed my eyes. What did he tell you? He said... She took a shuddering breath. He said you were inappropriate with Beth, that she came to him in tears about messages you sent, and when he confronted you, you flew into a rage and canceled the wedding. He said you're holding his things hostage in the condo. Hannah, what did you do? For a second, all I heard was the rush of blood in my ears. There it was, their move. Not a public smear, no angry Facebook posts, just a quiet, insidious whisper campaign to the people who mattered. His parents, our families, mutual friends. In his version, I was the unstable one, the predator, the saboteur. Susan, I said, and my voice was shaking now, not from guilt, but from fury. That is the opposite of what happened. Then tell me, she snapped, pain turning to anger, because my son is sitting in my kitchen saying you destroyed his life. I pressed my thumb to my forehead, forcing myself to breathe slowly. Logical, precise. I need to see you and Mark in person, I said, without Evan. That's not... Please, I cut in. If you care about the truth at all, meet me. I'll bring my phone. You can read everything yourself. Every word. If you still think I'm the villain after that, I'll accept it and leave you alone. But you deserve to see what actually happened. There was a long, strained pause. Where? She said finally, voice small. We met at a coffee shop halfway between my condo and their house. Neutral ground. Too bright, too cheery, with indie music that didn't fit the knot in my stomach. Mark sat ramrod straight, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Susan's mascara was already smudged. Hannah, Mark said, nodding stiffly. You've broken our son's heart. I hope you understand the gravity of that. I do, I said. I set my phone on the table like it was evidence in a trial. That's why I want you to see why I ended it. I opened the thread with Beth and slid the phone toward them. No commentary, I said. Please just read everything, from the top, including the timestamps. Susan picked up the phone with trembling hands. Mark leaned in. I watched their eyes move. Hey, you working hard? I was just thinking you're always so nice. You know, Evan is a very lucky man. Susan's lips parted. Mark's brow furrowed. Their expressions softened briefly when they read my refusal. Beth, I'm going to be very clear. I love Evan. I'm going to marry him. Then they hit the confession. Evan made me do it. He wanted me to test you. Please, Hannah, don't tell him I told you. Susan's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. Mark. Mark's face went from angry to confused to a deep, dark red. He scrolled back and forth as if the words might change if he looked at them from another angle. He lied to us, he said quietly. There was no heat in it, just stunned humiliation. He told us that Beth came to him because you were harassing her, that he confronted you and you threw a tantrum and canceled the wedding out of spite. I know what he told you, I said softly. Now you know what actually happened. Susan started to cry. For real this time. Not theatrical, not performative, just messy, mortified tears. She shook her head. This is so shameful. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I loved him. I really did. but I can't marry someone who orchestrates something like this and then lies to everyone about it. The wedding is off. I've already told my parents the deposit is gone." Mark closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded once, as if issuing a verdict. "You're right not to marry him," he said, voice flat. "You did the right thing." It didn't feel like winning. It felt like sitting in the rubble of something we'd all helped build, realizing the foundation had always been rotten. I left them there, clutching my phone like a piece of shrapnel. Evan didn't come back to the condo for his stuff. Of course he didn't. 2 days later, the intercom buzzed while I was sorting through his things, dividing them into boxes. I wiped my hands on my jeans and pressed the button. "Yeah? It's Beth," came the muffled reply. "Here for Evan's things." Of course it was. I buzzed her up. She appeared at my door a minute later, wearing oversized sunglasses and a sweatshirt that swallowed her. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. "Hi," she mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "I packed everything," I said, gesturing to the neat stack of boxes by the entryway. Clothes, books, his gaming stuff, whatever was clearly his. "If you see something missing, tell me." "Fine," she said, still staring somewhere over my shoulder. "We'll sort it." She bent to lift the first box. I watched her struggle with it for a second, then said quietly, "Beth, can I ask you something first?" She flinched as if I'd slapped her. I swallowed. "Why?" She straightened slowly, finally looking at me. Her eyes were bloodshot, but there was still a spark of defiance there. "I'm his friend," she said. "He was freaking out. He needed to know. I was helping." "Helping?" I repeated. "By trying to seduce his fiancé? By risking blowing up his entire life?" "You don't understand," she snapped, the tiredness giving way to anger. "You were supposed to just say no and delete it. We would have laughed about it later. Evan would have relaxed. But you had to be a little detective. You pushed me. You tricked me into saying his name. You tricked both of us. You're a psycho." The entitlement was breathtaking. "So, in your mind," I said slowly, "the problem isn't that you crossed every boundary imaginable. It's that I didn't hide it well enough to protect you both from consequences." She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, listen to yourself. You sound like a courtroom transcript. No wonder he thought you were hiding things." I let that slide. There would be time later to unpack all the ways she was wrong. "Speaking of court," I said, "tell Evan I want the ring back. He left it on my desk. It's his responsibility to return it." She snorted. "He's keeping the ring. You broke the engagement. You owe him. That $12,000 is for his emotional distress. Good luck getting it back." She grabbed the box again and shouldered past me, dragging it down the hall. I watched her go, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Emotional distress. So the plan was, test me, lie about me, smear me, keep the ring as compensation, and let my parents eat the $20K. They weren't just trying to rewrite the story. They were trying to profit from it. I closed the door gently, leaned my forehead against it for a second, and then walked to my desk. My laptop hummed to life as I opened a new browser tab. I didn't even hesitate. I typed, "Conditional gift engagement ring, state law." Article after article popped up. Legal blogs, Q&A forums, lawyers explaining in clipped paragraphs that in most states an engagement ring is a conditional gift, given in contemplation of marriage. If the condition, marriage, doesn't occur, the giver often has a claim to get it back. But what happens when the engagement ends because of someone's documented, deliberate wrongdoing? I scrolled, searching for words like for cause, fault, bad faith. 10 minutes later, I was on the phone. "Law Office of Hayes and Nolan," a receptionist chirped. "How can I help you?" "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I have a question about conditional gifts, specifically an engagement ring." "Okay," she said, tone shifting to something more professional. "We handle family and civil matters. I can schedule a consultation. Can I get your name?" I looked around my quiet condo, the half-packed boxes, the bare spot on my finger where the ring used to be, the calendar on the wall still marked with tasting appointment and final head count due, and felt something settle inside me. Not rage, not despair. Resolve. "It's Hannah," I said. "Hannah Cole." 3 months later, I was standing outside the county courthouse, clutching a folder so thick with printouts it could double as a weapon. The air smelled like rain and cheap coffee. My palms were sweating. This was it, the end of the line, my $12,000 line, to be exact. Evan and I hadn't spoken since the day he'd sent Beth to fetch his boxes. Every bit of communication had gone through our lawyers. His, a smarmy guy named Mr. Conway, who sounded like he charged by the syllable, and mine, Ms. Hayes, a woman whose voice could slice through glass, but who somehow managed to make me feel safe. calm, sharp, like someone who'd seen 100 messy engagements crash and knew exactly how to pick through the wreckage. When I'd first sat in her office 2 months ago, clutching screenshots of the texts like a survivor bringing proof of a crime, she'd skimmed the messages, raised an eyebrow, and said, "Good news, you're not crazy. Bad news, they are." Now we were walking side by side toward the courthouse doors. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded, though my throat was tight. "Define ready." She smiled faintly. "You have the truth and documentation. That's more than most of my clients. Just tell the truth. Let me do the cutting." Inside, the courtroom smelled of old wood and disinfectant. Evan was already seated at the defendant's table. Beth sat beside him, her posture stiff but her expression smug, like this was all an elaborate misunderstanding she'd have the pleasure of correcting. Evan had that polished, calm look he always used when he wanted people to see him as the reasonable one. Clean shave, expensive suit, soft blue tie. Like the boy next door who somehow stumbled into this mess by accident. When he saw me, he gave a little nod, the kind you give a colleague before a meeting, not the woman you'd once promised to marry. I didn't nod back. The judge entered, gray-haired, stern, the kind of man who looked like he'd been breaking up arguments longer than any of us had been alive. "All rise." The hearing began. Mr. Conway went first. His voice was honey-coated condescension. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Evan Miller, was devastated by the abrupt and emotionally violent way Miss Cole ended their engagement. He purchased a ring for her, valued at $12,000, as a symbol of love and commitment. Miss Cole broke the engagement without justification, leaving my client humiliated and heartbroken. The ring, as per common law, should remain her property." He gestured toward me, but instead she's demanding it back, out of spite. Ms. Hayes didn't even blink. "Out of law," she murmured under her breath. Mr. Conway continued, pacing like he was performing for an audience. "Now, yes, there were disagreements, as there are in every couple, but my client was acting out of love, attempting to confirm Miss Cole's honesty after noticing suspicious behavior, late nights, secretive phone use, emotional distance. His friend, Miss Beth Carter, agreed, perhaps unwisely, to help him resolve those doubts. The so-called test was an act of desperation, not malice. Miss Cole's reaction, on the other hand, was disproportionate and vindictive." Beth sat straighter, her lips pressed into a careful pout of victimhood. I could almost hear the story they'd rehearsed. He's the kind-hearted fool. She's the cold, manipulative woman with something to hide. It made me want to laugh, except I didn't have the energy for laughter anymore. When it was our turn, Ms. Hayes stood slowly like a cat stretching before a kill. "Your Honor," she said, voice crisp, "we are not here because of heartbreak. We are here because of documentation, text messages, timestamps, and a very clear trail of manipulation." She handed a bound packet to the clerk. "Exhibit A, messages from Miss Carter to my client, in which she explicitly attempts to seduce Miss Cole, sending inappropriate photos and suggesting secrecy. Exhibit B, my client's responses, which are respectful, firm, and clear in their rejection. Exhibit C, Miss Carter's later admission that she acted at Mr. Miller's request as part of a so-called loyalty test." She turned toward this bench. "Miss Cole did not break this engagement out of spite. She ended it for cause, because her fiancé engineered an elaborate deception to test her fidelity, using his ex-girlfriend as bait." The judge raised an eyebrow. "A test?" "Yes, Your Honor. Conducted without consent, and followed by attempts to conceal the truth when discovered." Ms. Hayes continued, methodically, laying out the legal framework. "Under state law, an engagement ring is a conditional gift, the condition being marriage. When the condition fails because of misconduct by the recipient, the donor has the right to reclaim it. My client's decision to end the engagement was not arbitrary. It was necessitated by Mr. Miller's breach of trust." Evan's lawyer objected. "Your Honor, this is a matter of perception." "Overruled," said the judge. "Continue, Ms. Hayes." Beth's jaw tightened. When Ms. Hayes was done, the judge invited witness testimony. Beth went first. She took the stand with a trembling act worthy of a daytime soap. "Hannah was always cold to me," she said, voice shaking. "She made me feel like a homewrecker, even though Evan and I were just friends. When I texted her that night, I was trying to joke, just being silly. But she twisted it. She demanded I admit Evan was behind it. I panicked. I said what she wanted to hear. I was scared. Mr. Conway nodded sympathetically. Thank you, Miss Carter. Then it was my turn to testify. I kept my voice steady. I told the truth. Every word of it. The messages, the confession, the confrontation. Ms. Hayes didn't need theatrics. The evidence spoke for itself. But when Beth had finished, I could tell the judge was wavering. He was quiet too long, his expression unreadable. That's when Ms. Hayes said, Your Honor, we have one final witness. Evan's head snapped up. Beth froze. Who? He demanded. Ms. Hayes smiled slightly. Mr. Dylan Porter. A man in his early 30s stood from the gallery and approached the stand. He looked nervous, but resolute. Mr. Porter, Ms. Hayes began. You previously dated Miss Carter, correct? Yes, he said. For about a year, 2 years ago. And could you describe the circumstances of your breakup? He nodded slowly. It was weird. She started a huge fight, accused me of having a wandering eye. Then, about a week later, my best friend, Kyle, came to me, looking sick. He showed me texts from Beth. She'd been hitting on him, saying I didn't appreciate her. He shut her down immediately. Beth's face went white. What happened after you confronted her? Ms. Hayes asked. She said I was insane, that Kyle was lying. She said I was controlling for even asking. She broke up with me the next day. Ms. Hayes tilted her head. Did you ever learn the truth? He hesitated, then nodded. 6 months later, she got drunk at a mutual friend's party and told me. She said it was a test, that she wanted to see if I'd get jealous. Apparently she'd done it before, with a friend who told her it was a way to know if a guy was loyal. I saw the realization dawn on the judge's face, a pattern, not a one-time lapse. Mr. Porter, Ms. Hayes said, did she mention Mr. Miller? Not by name, he said, but she said her old college friend thought I was too good to be true, that she should find the cracks before it was too late. I looked him up later. It was him. Evan's mouth dropped open. That's not, he began. Quiet, the judge snapped. The room was dead silent. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. Finally, the judge leaned back. What I have here, he said, voice low, is a clear and disturbing pattern of manipulation and deceit. Mr. Miller, you may think of your actions as a test, but they show a fundamental lack of good faith. And Miss Carter, your participation, repeated participation, in this kind of behavior speaks volumes. He adjusted his glasses, glancing at the file in front of him. The condition of the gift, the engagement, was voided not by Miss Cole, but by your misconduct. The ring must be returned within 48 hours. No installments, no exceptions. Beth let out a strangled noise. Evan just stared at the table. Court adjourned. The gavel hit. I didn't move for a second. My breath came out in a slow, shaky exhale. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like the first full breath I'd taken in months. Ms. Hayes leaned toward me. You did good, she said quietly. Now go get your life back. 2 days later, the ring was delivered to my doorstep in a small velvet box, taped shut like a hostage package. I didn't open it. I drove straight to a jeweler and sold it on the spot. $11,600. Cashier's check. Not victory money, closure money. Evan's parents called once. I didn't answer. My lawyer said they'd made him repay them for the $10,000 they lost on the dress and flowers. His father, apparently, hadn't spoken to him since the hearing. Beth vanished from social media. Word spread. Dylan's testimony did that for her. Their friend group shattered. No one wanted to touch that kind of drama again. And me? I came home to my condo, the one in my name, the one that still smelled faintly of lavender and betrayal. I stood in the doorway listening to the quiet hum of the fridge, the buzz of the city outside, the steady rhythm of my own breathing. $20,000 gone, 3 months of hell, but what I'd bought with that loss wasn't nothing. It was freedom. It wasn't a happy ending. I didn't walk away richer or vindicated or glowing with revenge. But I did walk away whole. People like Evan think they're playing chess. They think they're 5 moves ahead, that everyone else is a pawn in their test of loyalty. But what they never understand is that sometimes the smartest move isn't to win.